Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into some really fascinating AI news. We're going to break down how a brand new real-time AI framework called OverFlowLight is finally fixing one of the absolute worst parts of city driving. You know the drill. You're sitting in traffic, staring at a totally green light, but you literally can't move an inch because the cars ahead of you are completely blocking the intersection. It's a phenomenon called queue overflow, and it triggers those massive cascading gridlocks that just freeze up entire urban centers. Well, today, we are going to look at how this new hybrid AI framework uses multi-modal sensing and dynamic phase insertion to intercept these jams before they even happen.
So let's start with a pretty relatable question. If our traffic algorithms are so incredibly advanced these days, why do we still get stuck in intersections blocked by upstream traffic? I mean, with all the data modern cities are collecting, you'd think traffic lights would be smart enough to prevent a jam. But the crazy thing is, the very systems designed to keep traffic flowing are actually totally blind to the sudden, chaotic emergencies that cause gridlock in the first place.
All right, let's quickly run through our agenda for today. We're going to cover 1. The urban gridlock problem. 2. The OverFlowLight solution. 3. Hybrid control architecture details. 4. Real-world deployment results. And 5. The developer playbook.
Okay, jumping right into section 1, the urban gridlock problem.
Here is the core issue we're dealing with. Prevailing reinforcement learning algorithms optimize purely for throughput. They just want to move as many cars as possible over a long period. But they rely on predictive forecasting models that have an inherent latency of about 30 seconds. The reality of queue overflow, however, is that an intersection can go from flowing perfectly to completely gridlocked in a split second. Stopping that kind of jam requires sub-second immediate emergency prevention. A 30-second forecast is basically useless here.
You know what happens when an unexpected surge hits? Say, during peak hour asymmetric flows, where traffic heavily skews in one direction. Or there's just a sudden demand spike. The traditional predictive models essentially panic. They suffer from estimation errors and act way too slowly. By the time the AI realizes the intersection capacity is blown, the queue has already backed up into the upstream lanes. Which brings us nicely to section 2, the OverFlowLight solution.
OverFlowLight tackles this problem using 3 distinct steps: multimodal sensing, dynamic phase insertion, and hybrid orchestration. It doesn't guess, it measures, reacts instantly, and orchestrates the fix. Let's break these down.
First up, we have multimodal sensing. OverFlowLight fuses real-time data coming directly from synchronized cameras and radars. This allows the system to measure vehicle density and exact queue lengths with incredibly low latency. It totally bypasses that flawed 30-second predictive delay we just talked about, looking right at the stop line to know instantly if an intersection is about to overflow.
And here's where it gets really cool. Dynamic phase insertion. The absolute second those sensors detect an overflow threat, the system instantly injects a dedicated clearing phase directly into the active signal cycle. It literally forces a green light phase just to flush out that specific blocking queue before it can back up and freeze the upstream intersection. It's an instant emergency override.
Let's move on to section 3, to see how this all works under the hood. Hybrid control architecture details. So what exactly is a hybrid control design? Basically, it's an architecture that deliberately separates immediate, sub-second rule-based intervention from the long-horizon reinforcement learning optimization. You absolutely cannot have your long-term planning AI getting derailed and confused every time there's a sudden traffic spike. It's a brilliant division of labor. On one side, you have a rapid, rule-based controller executing that emergency phase insertion with sub-second latency. On the other side, your reinforcement learning backend just keeps humming along, managing overall network efficiency and adjusting green splits and offsets. The RL agent doesn't get destabilized because the rule-based system acts as a protective, priority front-end layer, putting out the immediate fires. Okay, the theory sounds great, but let's look at the hard numbers in section 4, real-world deployment results. The researchers behind this didn't just test it in some cozy digital simulation. They deployed OverFlowLight across 43 actual real-world intersections in 3 major cities. They layered it directly over existing municipal infrastructure to see what it could really do. And the impact? Absolutely massive. Compared to the baseline traffic systems already running in those cities, OverFlowLight delivered a staggering 60.4% reduction in overflow incidents. More than half of those gridlock-triggering events were completely neutralized. But get this, by acting as a hard constraint layer and preventing those cascading blockages, the entire network actually saw an 18.2% increase in overall throughput. By literally stopping to clear out the emergencies, the whole system paradoxically moved way faster.
Plus, there was a huge operational win. Usually, municipal workers have to manually step in and override signals to untangle peak hour messes. But deployment logs showed a substantial decrease in the manual intervention requirements typically needed for expert-tuned signal plans. The AI successfully took over the stressful, rapid response work. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, the Developer Playbook.
For the engineers and developers tuning in, here is your implementation playbook. First, do not replace your existing RL backends. You want to wrap them with OverFlowLight as a priority layer. Second, ensure you calibrate your sensors spatially to the exact stop lines. Otherwise, false positives will ruin your throughput. Next, when testing, skip the uniform scenarios. You really need to test performance under peak hour asymmetric traffic loads. And lastly, monitor your manual intervention logs constantly to fine-tune those rule-based thresholds.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. OverFlowLight completely proves we don't have to choose between long-term AI optimization and rapid rule-based emergency response. We can do both. How might these hybrid architectures save other failing urban infrastructures? If it works for Gridlock, what's next? Power grids? Water systems? It's a massive shift in how we apply AI to the physical world. Thanks for joining me to break this all down, and keep exploring.